So I'm sure by now that many of you have heard the huge video game news that came out yesterday morning, specifically the huge Xbox news that they are going to be purchasing Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. Yeah, that was a huge shock yesterday, and I still think that plenty of people in the gaming community have not really gotten over it. If you're obviously an Xbox fan, you're probably ecstatic and over the moon. If you are a PC person, you're probably, maybe meh on the whole thing. I mean, most of those products will probably come to PC anyway. A lot of them will probably be part of the PC Game Pass, so if you're part of that, you'll probably enjoy it. Obviously, paying less for games is great. So, I mean, for PC, it probably doesn't matter that much, except maybe the fact that Activision Blizzard's, companies will be better suited to make games without, a lot of the drama that's been going on, so they will hopefully make better products. If you are a PlayStation person, though, you're probably very upset. Now, some of you may say, like, well, I don't play those games, it doesn't matter to me, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of salt in the wound here, and I understand, from a gaming perspective that, yeah, this is probably upsetting to a lot of you. But I do want to kind of clear some things with a lot of, I guess what I'm seeing is misconceptions. And, in this video, I'm going to be going over what this actually means, or I guess the best educated guess of what this is going to mean going forward. What this means for Xbox exclusives and, the games that will potentially be not going to Sony's PlayStation anymore. Now, to start this off, what I want to talk about is, this exclusive thing, a lot of this timed exclusives or, limited content release kind of stuff, early access, this is not like a new thing. This has been kind of building, right? I mean, if you look at, from 2010 on, maybe even a little bit earlier, we see plenty of things going on in the industry. I mean, just recently, we've got Sony buying companies. I mean, they've bought quite a few. I think they bought 5 in 2021. And that includes one of their latest acquisitions, which was Valkyrie Entertainment. And Valkyrie even recently worked on the Halo Infinite game that just released, not too long ago in December. So, I mean, this is not like a new concept of companies buying studios. I mean, it happens. And whether you, disagree with the way that Microsoft is doing it or what, I mean, it happens on both sides. And Valkyrie is, just an additional name to their already purchased studios like House Marquee, Nix's Software, Firespit, and Bluepoint. So I mean, they are adding studios, and that also includes, their previous purchases of Sucker Punch and Insomniac. So I mean, purchasing studios is not new to the industry. I mean, it just happens, all right? Studios get gobbled up and bought all the time. Whether it's a bigger studio buying a really tiny, just, single developer or something, it happens. Personally, I think the exclusive content is more annoying to me. When Destiny had the year-long exclusive of strikes and maps and stuff like that for Destiny, this was aggravating. Not just because, they had the exclusive content and you couldn't play it, but I mean, if you consider that a person on the PlayStation, person on Xbox, they both paid $60 for the same game, but for some reason, the players on PlayStation were now getting more stuff than them. I mean, it feels a bit like a ripoff to people on, Xbox, and vice versa. It's just not fun. It kind of takes away the joy when you realize that you're not getting as much as other people for the same price. And this isn't like a new process. I mean, Call of Duty has been doing it for a little while now, and obviously they were doing it for PlayStation. And of course, I think Xbox had some Call of Duty exclusives before that. And another one that's near and dear to my heart, which would be The Division. Obviously, when The Division launched, they had month-long exclusives for their, DLC releases and stuff like that. So Xbox had 30 days more than, the other console. So obviously, I understand where a little bit of the rage comes from. Now, of course, maybe it's not fair to say, well, that's not the same as, buying up these huge mega studios for, billions of dollars. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe whatever, it is what it is. And as far as the gaming, world goes, that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, small studios are going to be created and bigger studios are going to try to buy them. Publishers are going to buy big studios, it just happens. Now, with Zenimax, this was obviously huge news back in 2020 where, they bought them for $7.5 billion. And that was one of the biggest transactions in gaming that had, really happened in recent memory. So this set up all sorts of, red flags for a lot of the people in the PlayStation community. But of course, there was a lot of ambiguity in it. People didn't know what that meant. What does that mean for, PlayStation? How is that going to affect PlayStation games? And many people were worried that, it was going to mean the end of a lot of these genres that they had been following, or a lot of these, games that they just loved were now going to be on a studio, or at least on a console that they didn't play. Right? And that I understand that. And a lot of people were kind of hoping that they were still going to make these games multi-platform because, there was a game, Minecraft, right? Minecraft's huge, and it's still on PlayStation, right? So there was hope that they weren't going to, just kind of lock everything behind an exclusive paywall. And a lot of this was kind of fueled by the ambiguous language that Phil Spencer was using. He was being very, politician-like in the way that he was talking about things. And one of the fears was that, they were going to take these games away from everyone and that they weren't going to release on different consoles. And of course, Phil Spencer was saying that they don't want to take away games from the players. And, they kind of did an interview with him, a bunch of interviews with him during this time. And what he said was that he didn't want to be flip about it, that the deal was not done to take games away from another player base. And nowhere in the documentation that we put together was, how do we keep other players from playing these games? Now, a lot of people kind of took this as to meaning that Xbox was buying them, but they weren't going to, lock everything down into exclusivity. But this necessarily didn't mean what he was saying. Now, the way that I kind of read it was that what he was saying is that he's not buying these studios just to take games away from PlayStation owners, right? He's not buying these studios to stop, PlayStation owners from having fun. That's not his goal. But he never said that he was, he wasn't buying these studios to make Xbox better. So what he really wanted was for Xbox to be the best place for gaming. And that doesn't mean he did it to hurt PlayStation, but it didn't mean that he was going to, just kind of let PlayStation have everything that they just bought, right? That's the way that I took it. Now, if we jump forward a little bit, what we can talk about, or at least what we can see, is just kind of the progression that it went. Now, Phil Spencer here talked about Bethesda being part of Xbox and delivering exclusive games where Game Pass exists, right? His whole goal has been to get Game Pass, pretty much going everywhere. And I guess whether that includes Nintendo or PlayStation, I can't really tell. If PlayStation said, hey, let's get Game Pass on here, we'll suck it up and, just take Game Pass. Would Xbox provide that? I have no idea. Would they maybe provide a different version of Game Pass where they have, some Xbox exclusive games, locked away from it, but the majority of games on Game Pass are available? Who knows? That could be a goal. But what he really talked about was that, there were contractual obligations behind, some of these games that were being created, most notably Deathloop and Ghostwire. So those games were timed PlayStation 5 exclusives, and Xbox was going to honor those. So again, a lot of people took this as being like, okay, well, there is hope that these games are going to be multi-platform. However, it soon became, pretty obvious that everybody's hope that all these games would be multi-platform just wasn't going to be true. PlayStation owners were hoping that these games would be finding their way onto PlayStation, but it just, it looked like it wasn't going to happen. Obviously, they announced that Bethesda's Starfield was going to be exclusively for Xbox and PC, and this was kind of a shot to the gut of some. This was an unknown game, one of the first new IPs in Bethesda's near-term history. So this was kind of like a huge deal breaker to many. Like, they were just like outraged by this, right? And of course, then it eventually came out that Elder Scrolls was going to be another PC and Xbox exclusive. Now, there are many games in the ZeniMax library, but we can already see that the biggest names are in fact becoming exclusive to Xbox, PC, this Game Pass family. Now, some people are going to say, well, they're blocking me from playing it. Well, no, they're not blocking you from playing it. You can figure out a way to get Game Pass. I mean, you can play on PC, you can play on Xbox. That's kind of the meaning of what they're saying. They are not saying that you cannot play these games, but if you are on a console that doesn't support Game Pass, well, then that's kind of on you. You're out of luck. I mean, they are going in the route of, we are providing as many different, possibilities for you to play on almost anything. And if you want to play these games, you have tons of options. You don't need to buy this specific Xbox. You can play on a multitude of things. It's just, the nature of the battle, the corporate battles with Microsoft and Sony obviously limits the amount of investment that they want to make into making Sony a better place to play games. Now, what we can see with this huge Microsoft $6.87 billion purchase of Activision Blizzard is kind of a lot of the same thing. I mean, they are buying this company for a huge amount of money to get access to some of the biggest games in gaming, or at least formerly biggest games in gaming. It really depends on how you look at it. Obviously, World of Warcraft was huge, right? And it could still be a huge game. It could come back from the dead. But as of right now, it's struggling. But still, Call of Duty is still one of the biggest selling games on either console. It is one of the best selling games. Okay, you can't get around it. And even if they are suffering from, repeated stupidity, people are still buying and playing Call of Duties. Again, what we are seeing is kind of a very similar stance from Microsoft here. They haven't completed the deal yet. They're not talking about anything, because they really don't want the optics to go negative on this. I mean, obviously there's going to be negativity and there's going to be positivity, but these are all, unfinished business dealings, and they are not going to talk about it, in finite terms. Now, what is being said in the media is, there's potential for some of these games to not be exclusives. And what I can say about this is, yeah, there's potential, but look at what happened with Bethseda. Obviously, those games are going exclusive. Now, what does this mean for all of the Activision Blizzard games? Well, look, I mean, World of Warcraft isn't on PlayStation. So it's not going to be, exclusive to Xbox. It was a PC game, so it's going to be exclusive to PC. Unless they decide to make a console port and put it only on Xbox. Now, had they not bought Activision Blizzard, would World of Warcraft ever see the light of day on console? They floated the idea a little bit. They kind of, denied it, and they said it was never going to happen. So, if this wasn't happening, maybe they would have never done it anyway. So it's not really like they're stealing a game from PlayStation, if that even happens, okay? Now, about Call of Duty, what can we say about Call of Duty? Well, honestly, I don't believe that many of these full release games will be included in PlayStation. There's no way that they're going to release some of these biggest games to their biggest rival. So what do I think that they're going to actually do about this? What kind of situation is this going to be? Well, I think, as we saw with Minecraft, this was kind of a already on all of the platforms. It wasn't like they bought it and then just gave it to the platforms. It was already there. They just continued to support it. So what I think the most likely scenario is, any games that are still there are probably going to be supported. Any games that are free to play, like Warzone, for example, like anything that's just a PvP based, arena type game, I think those will stay there, because obviously they're not being sold as, the full game. They're just a kind of like an add-on. And I think those will continue to be supported. And I think that's kind of what they mean by their support for these games. Do I think that they are going to release Overwatch 2 on PlayStation? Do I think that, Call of Duty, whatever the next, number in the series is, do I think that that's going to make it a PlayStation? No, I don't. Does this sting? Yeah, it probably stings a lot. Now, is it the worst thing? No. I mean, obviously there's plenty of ways to play it depending on what you actually engage in. But of course, again, they want the best for Xbox. They don't want the best for PlayStation. They are not here to support PlayStation. They are here to support Xbox. Now, if there's some games that are just well suited for that, maybe games that have crossplay and they want the biggest community possible, yeah, I think they're going to continue to support those types of games, continue to put those types of things on the market. Whether or not, Sony reacts negative to, whether or not Sony, despises this or hates this and just, tries to limit all Xbox products on the market, at least as far as their ecosystem goes, that's to be, determined. I don't know how Sony will address these types of things going forward. I don't know if they will want any of the former Activision Blizzard games to be on there. I don't know if they will want any of the former Bethesda games to be on there. It really just depends. Obviously, they've had huge problems with just, going into crossplay. So what they're going to turn down and what they're going to accept is, anybody's, guess at this point. Now, what Phil's been saying about this specific, Activision deal is that players out there who are playing Activision Blizzard games on Sony's platform, it is not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remained committed to that. What does that mean? Well, could he be meaning that communities, as in this game and this game, well, we're not going to pull them off your market. They're going to still be there. You can play it all you want. But he doesn't, specify whether he means the Call of Duty all-inclusive community or just this game of Call of Duty, community, that kind of thing. So, I mean, honestly, the kind of question remains is, what does he mean by communities? Now, if a community is a game that's already been launched and is that pre-existing community that is playing that game, no, I don't think he's going to be removing games that are already on PlayStation because they're already there. People already paid for them. There's already a community behind that. They're doing whatever. However, that doesn't mean that they're going to be adding communities to the platform. So I don't think that they're going to be trying to create the next Call of Duty community on Sony's PlayStation. That just, that's just what I see. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, obviously, you're just going to get into rage. I mean, Sony fanboys, for lack of a better term, are going to be upset. I would be upset if, something like The Division, maybe The Division 3, if there ever is one, became a PlayStation exclusive. I'd be upset. I wouldn't be upset at Sony. I'd probably be more upset about, Microsoft not buying it or not stopping it, not doing something to like counter it, that would be, yes, I would prefer that The Division became a Xbox exclusive because I play on Xbox. Now, would I want that to punish everyone who plays Division on PlayStation? No, I would prefer that, The Division, because it's a game that I play, has a bigger audience, right? I mean, if I'm making videos on The Division, I want everyone to be playing it, right? I want more people to understand, the game and make it better and kind of just find interesting stuff and just having a big community because that's fun. But if push came to shove and it was either Division's going to Xbox or PlayStation, yeah, I'm going to want The Division on Xbox every day of the week. No questions asked. Maybe that's not so good for Cold Boy. Obviously, he loves his PlayStation, but I don't. So if I had to choose him or me, yeah, I'm picking me. Sorry, Cold. But that's thankfully we're not at that point yet, and being distanced from Call of Duty, I don't have to really worry about that too much. Maybe it'll become an even better game, and I actually will get back into it. But who knows at this point? My biggest concerns are, is World of Warcraft going to become a console game? Can I play World of Warcraft finally on my Xbox and have that included in my Game Pass service? That would be awesome. Is that going to happen? Who knows at this point, right? I mean, probably not going to happen within, the next 2 years because obviously it's going to take time. So maybe in 3 or 4 years when the game's rightly dead and there's no support for it, maybe then they'll ditch out a console port. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll have to see where this goes forward. Now, if you're, one of these people who's like looking far into the future, hoping that all of these games that are now becoming, Microsoft-owned property are going to be continuing to support PlayStation, consoles down the line, I really doubt that's going to happen. Maybe there's some short games that are just kind of coming out in this limbo time period where they're just like, just release it. We'll do it. We'll suck it up. But going into the future, I do not see any of these studios, looking at like 2025 or 2026 releasing games for any Sony console. probably not even Nintendo consoles. And the only way I could see it is if they start supporting Game Pass on those consoles, which is Microsoft's true goal. Microsoft wants Game Pass on everything. So if Sony decides that they want to have Game Pass on their consoles, maybe you'll see some of these games on PlayStation. But until that point, sorry guys, I just don't see it happening. So don't keep your hopes up. It's best to just, hopefully you own both systems. If you don't, buy one of the Xbox Series S's. They're cheap, they're available. They work with, the cloud gaming and all that stuff. So potentially a great investment if you were into Game Pass. If you are a gamer and you like games, I mean, hating Game Pass is just stupid. But either way, thank you guys for watching this. Sorry if you are a PlayStation person and you this kind of hits you the wrong way, but it's unfortunately the most likely outcome. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next one.
Our team strives to make Xbox a place where you'll find the greatest games, the most dedicated developers, and the most passionate community. Together, we all make Xbox the best place to play.